Yeah, welcome back to ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. Today we're going to talk about the fund drive for the spring of 2023. We're also going to talk about the technology that we have learned about and which we are using in this discussion with retired Chief Judge Shackley Raffetto of Maui. And you will see what I mean. Just take a look at this first. Yeah, welcome to the show, Shackley. Shackley is one of the directors of ThinkTech Hawaii, which makes him even more special than the former chief judge of Maui. Thank you so much for being here, Shackley.
Glad to be here with you, Jay.
So we wanted to talk about the fund drive, and I wanted to take a minute and just, review nostalgic old times. You and I know each other since the early 70s. We worked in the same firm with different offices here in Oahu and in Maui. And things haven't changed that much between us, in all these years.
The rest of the world has changed.
Yeah, really. So, and you've been a friend and a director of ThinkTech for a long time. And I wanted to just take a moment and talk about the evolution of the company. And we started on the radio in the early 2000s, and we expanded to AM radio and then the newspaper in the late aught years. And then around 2010 or so, with the help of some of our underwriters, we actually started broadcasting, streaming. And we've been doing that since around 2010 or 2011 or something. And now 2023 going on 2024, a very significant time in the history of the world. We're still around. And the company has evolved into a 24/7, 365 days a year, talk show and webinar show organization, streaming more and more to the world about the world. You and I were talking about Khartoum, a minute ago, and we care about Khartoum. We care about what happens in Khartoum. We've been following Khartoum and Sudan for several years now. We think everyone in Hawaii should know what's going on in the world. So how do we do this? We have a studio downtown, and we have to raise money from underwriters. We have, I guess it must be about 20 underwriters who give us substantial amounts of money. And we use that to pay the cost of the studio, the staff, and all the operational expenses you need to put on 24/7, talk shows. And in addition, we have a spring and a fall fund drive. And the fund drive takes advantage of our really amazing technology. We have a file maker, Claris app, which we designed all by ourselves, which sends out email to all of our hosts, guests, contacts, viewers, and friends, and directors for that matter, telling them we're in a fund drive. And it's a sort of a mass mail program that we built ourselves, along with all of our scheduling software and our Encore software. And it's really quite amazing. And it's what shall I say? It's mature software, and we keep improving it anyway. That's what you do with mature software. You never stop working on it. Okay, so here we are in the fund drive for the spring, and you and I are here to talk about that and why it's important. And in the letters we sent out, we talked about why ThinkTech is important according to some of its supporters and followers. And the general message, Shackley, which you picked up on right away, was it's about the independent press, the independent media. It's about what ThinkTech does and how ThinkTech, is an example of free speech. And a lot of the things we covered deal with how important free speech is. So I am very, very impressed what you did to articulate the arguments in favor of free speech and therefore in favor of ThinkTech. So here we are in the world of AI, and we cover AI plenty. And I wanted you to tell our viewers how you got into that, how you rolled up your sleeves, and the truly amazing statements that you found on AI.
I'll do that, but first let me just say that the Spring Fund Drive is 1 May to June 15th. Our goal is $18,000. You can make a contribution through PayPal, credit card. If you want to do it online, it's thinktechhawaii.com. If you want to send by mail, it's ThinkTech Hawaii at 1164 Bishop Street, Suite 603, Honolulu 96813. With that said, what I did was when you asked me to come on, I thought, well, I wanted to sit down and say something about free speech, and then I remembered that I've been fooling around lately with Chat GPT and GPT-4, and so I went on the Chat GPT and I asked. Here's the question I asked. Well, I asked for 5 points in favor of freedom of speech or why it's important. And it came back and it says, sure, here are 5 of the most important arguments in support of the right to free speech as protected by the First and the 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. What it does is it gives you bullet points and then it gives a sentence in support. I won't read it all, but the points were, it's necessary for a free and democratic society. No question about that. It's the founding principle of our country. It protects individual autonomy so that people have the right to express themselves and cannot be censored, like that poor man who just got 25 years in prison for speaking out in Russia. It acts as a check on government power so that people can criticize their government and listen to others who do the same. It promotes intellectual and scientific progress by fostering an environment of open inquiry and debate, very important. And it protects minority rights by preventing the marginalization of minority groups based on their right to ensure that they have their voices heard by the majority.
Here is the first of 5 of the most important arguments in support of the right to free speech, as protected by the First and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. The first argument is that free speech is necessary for a free and democratic society. One of the most important arguments in support of the right to free speech is that it is a necessary component of a free and democratic society. Free expression allows for the exchange of diverse ideas and opinions, which is essential for a vibrant democracy that values the input and participation of its citizens.
Here are some general reasons why someone might choose to support a local online news provider like ThinkTech Hawaii. 1. It promotes local journalism. By supporting a local news provider like ThinkTech Hawaii, you can help ensure that there is a diverse range of voices covering news and events in your community. This can help to promote a healthy and thriving news ecosystem, which is essential for a well-informed citizenry. 2. It provides access to relevant news and information. Online news sources like ThinkTech Hawaii can provide access to news and information that may not be covered by traditional mainstream media outlets. This can include local issues, events, and perspectives that are relevant to your community. 3. It supports independent media. As a nonprofit independent media outlet, ThinkTech Hawaii is not beholden to the interests of corporate owners or advertisers. Instead, it can focus on delivering high-quality news and information to its audience without any conflicts of interest. 4. It helps to hold power accountable. By providing in-depth coverage of local politics, business, and other power centers, ThinkTech Hawaii can play a valuable role in holding those in positions of authority accountable for their actions. This can help to promote transparency and accountability, which are essential for a functioning democracy. 5. It promotes civic engagement. Finally, by supporting an online news provider like ThinkTech Hawaii, you can help to promote civic engagement and participation in your community. When people are well informed about the issues that affect them, they are more likely to participate in civic life and make informed decisions about the future.
So I thought those were excellent.
They are. They were. When I got that, I said, this is so well written. It would take a senior judge, a chief judge, to write this well. And then I saw at the bottom, it said, oh, no, this was not from Shackley Raffetto. This, in fact, was from ChatGPT. That was very impressive.
It's from me using the tools necessary to enable free speech.
Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put on top of this video all of the 5 points, that you mentioned in full, with an avatar. That AI video can generate, because I've been messing around with that. And I will show all our viewers what that looks like when we take the text that you got from ChatGPT and put it on an avatar, a man, a woman, whatever you like. and have that person articulate these words. It's very powerful because the way it reads, it sounds like a real person, and the way that the expressions on the face of the avatar, it looks like a real person. So and that'll be sort of an example, if you will, of how this works and how we can make promotionals and we can ask people to contribute money to ThinkTech, because ThinkTech is at the cutting edge of all this. We have a consultant who helps us, and we read this. And by the way, let me tell you that if you want to find out about AI, just go on YouTube and search for videos on AI. It's not the same thing as going on Google, because on YouTube, all these people who are working with AI are making videos of it, and they're showing you their new products. They're showing you the result of asking inquiries like you did. And they're showing you all these AI video avatars. And I mean, it's moving so fast. And if you want to see how fast it's moving, just go on YouTube and search for AI. You will see it's quite extraordinary. Anyway, you also went on and you did a search, a ChatGPT search on, or you asked for some commentary from ChatGPT on ThinkTech.
Yes.
I wonder if you could read that for us.
Yes. I asked for 5 points, and this is the answer. It says, as an AI language model, I am programmed to remain neutral and cannot endorse any particular organization. However, I can provide some general reasons why someone might choose to support a local online news provider like ThinkTech Hawaii. And it states, one is promotes local journalism, which we do in spades. No question about that. Provides access to relevant news and information, especially local information. Supports independent media, which it is. It helps, which we need, and not just mainstream media. We need independent media, and that's why people go to YouTube all the time. It helps hold power accountable through programs which discuss things like the arrest of President Trump and other like subjects which have been on recently. And it promotes civic engagement by encouraging people from the community who would not otherwise have their voice heard in traditional media sources. And we do a lot of that. I mean, if you go through the Netflix Truth program from today, and it includes, what I saw really interesting. It includes one of those programs about the arrest of Trump, but also there's one about how to get a loan for a home and what's the role of the mortgage loan officer. You never see that on regular news. Holistic wellness, another program on free speech in sports, which is an interesting subject, a niche subject, but you'll never see it on mainstream media. Another one on American issues regarding alleged gifts to Supreme Court Justice Thomas, very topical subject. Another one about the leak of classified information by that airman Teixeira that's on the news now, and another rule of law program with some lawyers on, it's called Authoritarian Minority Rule Battles, Uncivil War, Free Speech, and Voting, and more. So talk about a variety of subjects that people would learn information about, which is unique, completely unique. There's nothing else on that provides that kind of information and input.
Yeah, more on you for a minute. You were practicing law for many years in Maui, and then you became a judge and then the chief judge, and you sat in the courts on various trials, some of them very high-profile trials. You established a drug court in Maui. Mm-hmm. Drugs are really part of our American culture, and we have to deal with them. It's a very important issue. But I think for this discussion, Shackley, as a judge, hearing testimony, hearing examination and cross-examination, trying to shepherd a jury who's supposed to determine the truth, and when you're in a jury waived trial, your own self, who listens to the testimony and tries to determine the truth. It's so much of it is about free speech. So much of it is about truth. And so much of democracy requires that. And you have been in this as a judge, as a practitioner, and as a traveler, because you've traveled everywhere I can think of in the world, including some countries that have turned autocratic, some countries that have serious problems with human rights and civil rights. If I could find the core of you, Shackley, I would say it's about free speech. Am I right?
Yes, I believe so. I think, in my own personal opinion, the reason that we have relatively strong rule of law in our country, which is absolutely essential for the survival of a democracy, is the jury system where citizens participate in the creation of justice. I always called it citizen-derived justice, and free speech. Those two things are absolutely crucial for our democracy. And in countries like places like France that have the civil law system, a citizen never goes to the courthouse unless they have a problem. In our country, thousands of people every week report for jury service. Not all are served, but all of them receive orientation and see the courthouse and see where the judges are. And that's an incredibly powerful social institution. And you combine that with free speech so that people can speak their mind and talk against the government if they want to. I think I can't think of how anything more powerful than that.
You know what, though? A lot of people don't appreciate what you just said, what we are saying, what ThinkTech is saying. And they think things will be fine without free speech. They don't see the value in it. They don't realize that it's a cornerstone of our lives together in this country. And when we hear about, for example, the guy who was recently convicted and sentenced to 25 years in jail in Russia, all he was doing was exercising his right to speech. All he was doing was criticizing the government. You can do that in this country. In other countries, it's 25 years, and that's the end of your human rights and civil rights in your life. And there are so many people in Russia and other autocratic governments where that happens. The other point I want to raise, and you have been around, and spent some time teaching law, teaching the American legal system in various countries, some of which are autocratic. Let's take a look at Khartoum for a moment. A couple of years ago, they made a deal, the government versus the military. And it was going to be a kind of collaboration. Every other year, one of them would run the government, and every odd year, then the other one would run the government. They rotate. So it was supposed to start with the civilian government for year number 1 or 2 or like that. And then the next rotation was going to be the military government, which is a very odd result. But I guess, you compromise sometimes and you do that. Now, nobody realized exactly where all that was going. And what happened de facto, we've had several shows on this through Project Expedite Justice in East Africa. We found that the first thing that happened is although the first iteration was supposed to be the civilian government, in fact, the military said, we're going to change that. We are going to be the first iteration. The second change was that was supposed to rotate after a couple of years. Nah, the military said, we're not going to rotate that. We're just going to stay in power. And so you have the development of a junta and an autocracy. Well, at the first of it, I remember the footage in Khartoum, and there were virtually hundreds of thousands of people protesting against what the military had done. But they said, and they were nonviolent protesters. They were, concerned about civil order. They were concerned about retaining a quality of life. They were concerned about, civil rights and human rights. And they knew that if they ramped it up, then the military would ramp it up. And little by little, if you track what happened in Khartoum and other places in Sudan, you find that over the past couple of years, between then and now, it's been ramped up. And all of a sudden, you found that the military was shooting real bullets at them, and they were responding in kind. And all of a sudden, you have chaos. And I raised this because I want to ask you about what happens to free speech in chaos. You know, if people make the assumption they will always have the right to free speech and civil rights and human rights, but they don't realize, only a few people, you, for example, realize that in the autocratic moments or in chaos, free speech goes away. It's responsible for the chaos, but the chaos makes it just that much worse. And so what we have in Khartoum is not civil rights, a complete disorder, killing a lot of people. Who knows when these warring factions, these warring military generals will come to rest? And who knows when the people in Khartoum will be able to exert a peaceful protest again? Your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, an authoritarian regime does not want free speech for all the reasons that we desire it, and it's part of our founding documents. I think a really good example of how free speech affected government policy was, for those who remember and were alive back then, was the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was essentially stopped because of the expression of a large part of our citizenry that they were against it and that it was wrong and we shouldn't be doing it. And that eventually got our leaders to stop that war. But we have that protection of our free speech rights. Whether that can ever be again established in Sudan, we'll have to wait and see. But if you want to have a democracy that, the real value of democracy, I think, is it's so flexible. If you look at the history of the United States, there's one crisis after another. There's one period, look at, in the 60s when I grew up, there was complete chaos. Everybody who was over 40 thought things were going to be destroyed. And then the younger people were, celebrating individuality in various ways. And it changed our culture. But we had the flexibility to be able to make that change instead of ending up in a civil war. And people say today, well, we're going to have a civil war over Trump or whatever. But I don't think so. I think that we're still flexible enough so that our democracy will continue, at least for the foreseeable future. And if it does, it'll be because of those fundamental rights in the first 10 amendments of our Constitution, which were genius.
They were, and still working, knock wood. Huh? But
Yeah.
if you have the divisiveness and you have people calling for a civil war, and the number of people who call for a civil war believe that one is happening, seems to be increasing in this country, ultimately we may have one. And if we have one, free speech will be out the window. And that's why, to me, ThinkTech is so important.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't have one news function. You can't have one news channel. You have to have everyone expressing himself. I mean, in truth, of course. We need truth. We want everybody to make some effort to have truth.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is that you have to have a disparity of views. You have to have people speaking on the same subject in various ways. It's not like state TV in Russia, where they all say the same thing exactly in the same words. And for that matter, there are media here in the United States. Everybody, as part of the consolidated group, says the same thing in the same words.
Mm-hmm.
We need disparity. We need people who are expressing different views. And one of the reasons I think ThinkTech is important, although it's really tiny compared to some of the huge media organizations who are, on the playing field, is that we are independent and we talk about anything and everything, and we express our views, and we're part of what I think is important to what you are talking about. You have to have the diversity of views. We are part of the diversity. Am I right?
Yes. That's why I'm a YouTube junkie. Is we're on YouTube, and lots of other people are on YouTube. You can get BBC, you can get Deutsche Welle, you can get news from around the world. All you have to do is look it up. Now, would you just say something about all the other accesses to programming besides YouTube that we have?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, we of course we have cable news, some of which is it strives to tell the truth, and others we're going to find out in the Fox News case apparently strive not to tell the truth. And the same thing exists in radio. We have radio where stations are consolidated 300 at a time. Sinclair Radio is an example of that, where they all have exactly the same opinion in the same words, and they are not too concerned about truth. And here's one that I find very interesting. We're going to have a show about that this week. We have entertainment, Shackley, and it's on the entertainment channels on cable. It's on Netflix, it's on Prime. And what is the 90% rule of all this entertainment? It's guns. It's about people who shoot each other. It's about people who glorify guns. Any scene on any of these movies, really, just tune in and you will see a gun in the first 1 second. And what this entertainment, and I use the term loosely, is doing is training people how to express themselves with weapons. This is a problem because the American culture it learns not only from media that claims to be news media, but the American culture learns from entertainment that is on the line between entertainment and education and arguably news. So all of the media comes together on this sort of thing. And the most responsible media are the ones that we should focus on. And I believe that ThinkTech is a responsible media. And for that reason, it should be a favored media for anyone who wants to see independent citizen journalism.
Yes, I agree. I think that kind of entertainment that you described desensitizes people about the seriousness of gun ownership and is very unfortunate. I myself have taken to watching as many Woody Allen movies as possible.
Right, exactly. So, here we are. We're a little tiny nonprofit. We have always been a little tiny nonprofit. It's not like streaming 24/7 is going to make us a juggernaut of MSNBC or CNN or Fox News for that matter. But where do we fit in all of that? Because we're a little tiny, independent, amateur, if you will, citizen journalists who read and watch and think and then talk to each other. I think this is a very valuable process. At the same time, we're not going to change the minds of 300 million people. So why are we relevant?
Well, independent journalism. I mean, it really comes back to free speech and the value of allowing access to local communities to independent journalism.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how would you know these things? I mean, how would you learn what a mortgage broker does or how to apply for a home? I mean, that's great. And we have one on condominium ownership, and that's certainly relevant in our state.
So what should be the view of the citizen who knows about this, who watches you and me talking about it, who takes a peek at it, who takes a look at our stuff on thinktechhawaii.com and on youtube.com. Our channel there is youtube.com/thinktechhawaii, and various other platforms where we broadcast, including Olelo. And we are seen around the world by people who follow our subjects and our coverage. But what should the average person think about in terms of us and in terms of making a contribution to us? Because, without the contributions, there's no soap. There's no ThinkTech.
That's right. Everything is supported by contributions. It's not a for-profit organization at all. And I would think that anyone who watches ThinkTech programs who feels that they have value should consider making a contribution of some sort, depending upon their economic situation. But anything helps. I mean, the small donations accumulated are a huge help, and it's surprising how fast they will mount up. If you can afford to make larger contributions, it's tax deductible. It's a good way to get a tax deduction at the end of the year, and a righteous way to do it. So I would encourage anyone who has watched programs and thought they were interesting, if you want to see that continue and to support our efforts, why please consider making a contribution during our spring fund drive.
So there's a response to you along the lines of, Judge Raffetto, why do I have to, write a check here? Because actually I can watch CNN, I can watch MSNBC and a number of other stations, which I may have some confidence in, without writing a check. They will show me advertisements of every medicinal miracle that you have ever heard of in your life. But all I have to do is, take a walk away from the tube, and I don't have to watch that. I don't have to write a check to them. Isn't it a better choice for me to just watch that stuff and not write a check to an independent citizen journalism organization?
Yeah, on YouTube, you have to pay extra in order to avoid the commercials. But with YouTube Prime, here you don't have to do that. But I think it's important. We're not promoting any commodity or business or anything like that. We're neutral and independent. Independence is the word we should underline. Independent journalism. There isn't much of it, and it should be treasured as a real asset for our community.
Yeah, it goes back to the 5 points that ChatGPT came up with. It goes back to preserving our democracy.
That's right.
And we cannot let it go. We cannot ignore it. We must support it. In my view, there is an obligation on the part of every single citizen to make sure that free speech is preserved at every level. And if you look at what do you want to call it, the corporate institutions, the capital structures of the media right now, it's hard to say that's citizen journalism. It's not. It's journalism that is motivated by and serves large capital concentrations, which may have a very inappropriate agenda, such as we're learning about Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
So the independent journalists, the citizen journalists, become all the more important to preserve. So even if it wasn't just ThinkTech, ThinkTech and other organizations like ThinkTech this is what I hear you saying, are very important to the preservation of our nation.
Many voices.
Many voices. Well, thank you, Shackley Raffetto, a retired chief judge of the Second Circuit in Maui, a man who's practiced law, a man who's been in through the military years and years ago. I remember our discussions as I was, and a man who's traveled all over the world and seen all kinds of types of government, and a man who has sat in the courtroom for years and years to appreciate the core point of truth. So, as a man who is a director of our precious ThinkTech, thank you so much for coming on, Shackley.
It's a great pleasure.
Aloha.
Dear ThinkTech hosts, guests, viewers, and supporters, here are some unsolicited comments from recent donors. I love ThinkTech Hawaii's content. Now more than ever, independent media outlets such as ThinkTech Hawaii are vital to the survival of our democracy. Thank you for fighting the good fight. I deeply appreciate the discourse and dialogue your team does, and keep us thinking and hopefully moving forward toward making our precious islands even better and better. Yes, we work hard 24/7 to achieve better content and production values, with better and better video and audio quality, And of course, we greatly appreciate this kind of recognition. We also greatly appreciate your participation as host, guest, or viewer in helping us serve the community with this great daily content. But the fact is that we also need your financial support to stay on the air. In a word, we can't do it without you. At this point, we need your donation, however big or small, for our Spring 2023 Fund Drive. Please make a donation and also share our message with your friends and colleagues. Please make your tax-deductible donation to ThinkTech Hawaii. It is very important for us, and we believe it is also very important to raising public awareness for the community. You can make your donation by PayPal or with a credit card. To do so, please click on the donate button on thinktechhawaii.com. You can also send us a check. Please send it to ThinkTech Hawaii, 1164 Bishop Street, Suite 603, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813. As contributors, you are part of our family, and we are deeply grateful for your support. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.